Have you ever wondered what really happens when you take a picture? Every photo you've ever taken, from a quick selfie to a beautiful landscape, is based on a simple idea. A camera is just a box that catches light and saves it as a picture. Today, we're going to open up that box and see exactly how it works. So, what do you think a camera needs most to create a photo? Is it a button, Wi-Fi, or light? If you guessed light, you're absolutely right. Without light, a camera is completely blind. Every camera, whether it's on your phone or a big professional one, follows three main steps. First, it collects light using the lens. Second, it controls how much light gets in and for how long, using something called the aperture and the shutter. And third, it records that light using a sensor or film in older cameras. That's really it. Everything else is just helping those three core steps happen. Let's start with the lens. You can think of the lens as the camera's eye. Light bounces off everything around you, enters the lens, and gets focused into a sharp, clear image inside the camera. If the lens didn't do this focusing job, your picture would just be a big blurry mess. Once the light passes through the lens, it needs to be controlled. Inside the lens, there's a small opening called the aperture. It can get wider to let in lots of light, or narrower to let in just a little. Right behind that is the shutter. The shutter is like an eyelid. It opens for a split second to let light hit the inside of the camera, and then closes again. A big aperture lets in more light, and can make the background of your photo look blurry and artistic. A small aperture lets in less light, but keeps more of the background sharp. A fast shutter freezes motion, while a slow shutter creates that cool motion blur effect. So where does the light go? In a digital camera, it hits the sensor. The sensor is a surface covered in millions of tiny light-sensitive squares called pixels. When light hits each pixel, it gets converted into a tiny electrical signal. The camera then reads all those signals and turns them into the image file you see on your screen. When you're using auto mode, the camera's computer is just making its best guess. It looks at the scene, figures out how bright it is, and then automatically adjusts the aperture and shutter speed for you. That's why you can just point and shoot and usually get a pretty good photo. But if you want to get creative, you need to understand these settings a bit more deeply. Let's talk about aperture again. Its size is measured in what we call f numbers, like f1.8 or f11. And here's the tricky part. A smaller f number like f1.8 means a bigger opening. This lets in more light and gives you that beautiful blurry background, which we call a shallow depth of field. A larger f number, like f11, means a smaller opening. It lets in less light but keeps much more of the scene in focus, from front to back. Next is shutter speed, which is how long the shutter stays open. It's measured in fractions of a second, like 1/1000th or 1/30th. A super fast shutter speed, like 1/1000th, is perfect for freezing fast action, like a bird in flight or a splash of water. A slow shutter speed, like 1 second, lets light in for longer. This is how photographers create those amazing light trails from cars at night or make waterfalls look silky and smooth. Finally, there's ISO. ISO is your camera's sensitivity to light. A low ISO, like 100 or 200, is not very sensitive. It gives you a clean, crisp image, but it needs a lot of light. A high ISO, like 3200 or 6400, makes the sensor much more sensitive, which is great for shooting in dark places. The trade-off is that high ISO can add a grainy texture called noise to your photo. The art of photography is balancing these three things, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, to get the perfect exposure. So once the sensor has done its job, what happens? The camera's processor takes over. It reads the signals from all the pixels, builds a digital image, and saves it as a file, like a JPEG onto your memory card. When you look at the picture on your screen, you're just seeing that stored data displayed as an image. Let's quickly recap. When you press that button, the lens focuses the light. The aperture controls the size of the opening. The shutter controls how long the light gets in. The sensor catches that light and turns it into data. And finally, the processor saves it as a photo you can see and share. A camera isn't magic. It's just a very clever light catcher. And now that you know how it works, you can start moving beyond auto mode and truly creating the images you envision. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more tips.